I never expected to hear my own wife talk about me like that. It was supposed to be just another casual dinner with her friends, something she had planned weeks ago, something I had no real interest in attending. These nights were always the same. She chatted and gossiped while I sat there, nodding along, barely included in the conversation. But this time was different. The restaurant was packed, and instead of sitting beside her, I was a few seats down, just far enough that she likely assumed I couldn't hear. At first, I wasn't even paying attention, my mind wandering elsewhere. Work, the weekend, anything but the idle chatter around me. Then I heard it. One of her friends asked, "So, how's married life treating you?" Her response? A laugh. A loud, dismissive laugh, followed by words that would etch themselves into my memory forever. "Oh, please. He's just my roommate at this point. Just my roommate." The conversation blurred after that. I couldn't focus, my mind shutting down as those words echoed over and over. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. There was no teasing, no playfulness. Just indifference, as if this version of our relationship was a settled fact. Worse, her friends chuckled and nodded, their reactions confirming that this wasn't the first time she had said something like this. A rock settled in my stomach. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I wasn't even sad. Just stunned. Was that really how she saw me? Had I missed the moment I stopped being her husband and became nothing more than someone who shared her living space? I replayed the last few months, maybe even the last year, searching for the moment things had shifted. Had I been blind to it all this time? I had never stopped seeing her as my wife. I worked hard. I supported her. I made an effort. And yet, here she was, reducing me to nothing more than a background character in her life. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I barely spoke. I didn't react. Confronting her right then, in front of her friends, would have been pointless. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of knowing she had struck a nerve, but something inside me shifted. For the rest of the night, I watched her differently. The way she barely acknowledged me. The way she was fully engaged with her friends, laughing, animated, while I sat there, unnoticed. And suddenly, I saw it clearly. I had already been living as her roommate. I had just been too blind to realize it. When we got home, I said nothing. No accusations, no demands for explanations. I was still processing, still deciding how I felt. But one thing was certain, I wasn't going to be just a roommate anymore. The silence between us that night felt heavier than usual. She moved through her routine like nothing had happened, kicking off her shoes, pouring a glass of water, scrolling through her phone. Not a single glance in my direction. No acknowledgement of what she had said. I watched her, waiting. Would she bring it up? Would she realize how her words had sounded? Nothing. That's when I knew I had to say something. "Why did you say that?" I finally asked. She barely looked up. "Say what?" "At dinner. When they asked about married life." She frowned slightly, eyes still glued to her screen. "What are you talking about?" "You called me your roommate." That got her attention. She rolled her eyes, exasperated. "Oh, that? Come on, it was just a joke." "A joke?" I let out a humorless laugh. "You didn't sound like you were joking." She sighed, finally setting her phone down, as if I was some chore she had to deal with. "You're being too sensitive. It was just something to say. I didn't mean anything by it." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to convince myself that I was overreacting, that it was nothing more than an offhand remark. But deep down, I knew better. "You didn't mean anything by it?" I repeated, shaking my head. "So if I told my friends you were just my roommate, you wouldn't care?" She scoffed. "I wouldn't, because I wouldn't take it so seriously." I studied her, searching for any sign of regret, any indication that she understood why this wasn't okay. There was nothing. Just irritation, like I was the one making a problem out of nothing. "You've said that before, haven't you?" I asked. Her hesitation gave me my answer. My chest tightened as realization fully hit me. This wasn't just something she had blurted out in the moment. This was something she had told them before. Something she believed. It wasn't about the words themselves. It was about what they represented. She had already checked out of this marriage. Maybe she had for a long time. Maybe I had been holding on to something that was already gone. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just tired. "I don't think you see me as your husband anymore," I said quietly, more to myself than to her. She let out another sigh, rubbing her temples like I was exhausting her. "Can we not do this right now?" That was it. That was all she had to say. No apology. No attempt to explain. Just a plea to drop it. I nodded slowly. "Fine." I turned and walked away, heading to our bedroom. But something inside me told me this conversation wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That night, she turned away from me in bed, a physical barrier as much as an emotional one. And as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I realized something. I didn't belong here anymore. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual. I showered, dressed, and walked into the kitchen like I always did. She was already there, making coffee, scrolling through her phone. She glanced at me briefly before turning back to the screen. For her, last night's conversation had already been buried under a dozen other thoughts. She didn't see the weight of what had happened. She didn't care that I had spent the night lying awake, realizing that I was wasting my time. And that's when I knew. I was done. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't sit her down for some dramatic speech about how I deserved better. What was the point? She had already shown me exactly what I meant to her. There was no speech that could change that. So I started making a plan. I checked our lease. Her name was the only one on it. The bills? All under her name too. Everything about this place, the life we had built together, was technically hers. That made things easier. There would be no arguments over furniture, no fights over who got to stay. I didn't have to fight for anything. I had enough savings to get my own place, to move on without complications. The only question was when. For the next few days, I played my role. I went to work, came home, and acted like nothing had changed. But inwardly, I had already begun pulling away. Bit by bit, I started packing only what was mine. Clothes, electronics, important documents. The rest? She could keep it. She didn't even notice. She never asked why my side of the closet was emptying, why little pieces of my existence were vanishing. She didn't pay enough attention to me for that. And that only confirmed what I already knew. I was making the right decision. The night before I left, I sat in the living room, taking it all in one last time. Once, this had been our home. Now, it was just a space where two people coexisted. I wasn't going to be part of it anymore. By the next evening, I was gone. No note. No message. I simply left. Leaving was easier than I expected. I walked out the door with nothing but a couple of suitcases, my laptop, and the essentials. No dramatic goodbye, no last confrontation. I just closed the door behind me and left her to deal with the mess she had created. The first night away felt strange, but not in the way I thought it would. There was no sadness, no regret, just an eerie, unfamiliar quiet. I had booked a short-term rental while I figured out my next steps, and as I sat in that unfamiliar space, a realization settled over me. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. While I adjusted to my newfound freedom, she remained oblivious. I had expected her to notice immediately, to flood my phone with messages, to call relentlessly. But the first night? Nothing. The next morning? Still nothing. I checked my phone a few times out of curiosity. No missed calls. No messages. Maybe she hadn't even come home. Maybe she had stayed out or crashed at a friend's place. But as the hours passed, I wondered, had she even noticed I was gone? That question answered itself late in the evening when her name finally appeared on my screen. Where are you? Not, are you okay? Not, why did you leave? Just 3 words, flat, detached, almost indifferent. I didn't respond. I wanted to see if she'd follow up, if she'd make a real effort to understand. She didn't. No call. No second message. And that told me everything I needed to know. But she couldn't ignore reality forever. Rent was due soon. The utilities, too. And this time, she didn't have my paycheck covering half the costs. I had run the numbers before I left. She could afford it, if she cut back significantly. But it wouldn't be easy. A week passed before her next message. This time, her tone had changed. Did you cancel the autopay for the bills? I ignored it. 2 days later. I need to talk to you. Call me. She wasn't asking where I was anymore. She wasn't pretending my absence didn't matter. Reality had caught up with her. She had laughed with her friends about me being just a roommate, treating me like an afterthought in my own home. But now she was experiencing the reality of that statement. No one to split the costs. No one to keep things running. No one there at all. And I had no intention of coming back. The messages kept coming. At first, spaced out, cautious, as if testing whether I'd engage. When I didn't, her tone shifted. She started calling. I let every call go to voicemail. I had no interest in whatever excuses she had prepared. She didn't deserve the satisfaction of hearing my voice. Then, one evening, she sent a longer message. Look, I know things got weird, but we need to talk. I feel like this has gone too far, and I don't understand why you're doing this. Can we meet? why I was doing this. That was the part that got me. She truly didn't get it. She had humiliated me in front of her friends, dismissed my feelings when I confronted her, treated me like a ghost in my own life. And now, because it was inconvenient for her, she wanted to talk? I ignored it. The next day, another message. I don't want things to end like this. Can we at least have a conversation? Now it was about us. Now she didn't want things to end. But I wasn't stupid. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She wasn't realizing her mistake. She was reaching out because she didn't like dealing with the consequences. Still, part of me was curious to see just how far she'd go. So I agreed to meet. Not at the apartment. Not anywhere private. A coffee shop. Neutral ground. A place where she couldn't turn this into some emotional spectacle. When I walked in, she was already there, sitting near the window. She looked different. Not sad. Not regretful. Just uneasy. The moment she saw me, she forced a smile. Hey. I nodded and took a seat across from her, waiting. She hesitated, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup like she needed something to hold on to. I don't really know how to start this. I said nothing. She sighed. I feel like you overreacted. That made me laugh. A dry, humorless laugh. She rushed on. I didn't mean what I said the way you took it, and I think if we just talk, we can figure things out. I let her words hang between us before finally responding. You think I left because of one thing you said? She blinked, as if the thought had never crossed her mind. I leaned forward. That wasn't a joke. That was how you really saw me. And I realized that night that I was done being in a marriage where I was nothing more than a roommate. Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. She knew I was right. Still, she tried. I didn't mean it like that, she insisted, grasping at an excuse. I was just venting. My friends and I joke around like that all the time. I shook my head. Jokes always have some truth in them. Silence. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then, finally, she exhaled and leaned back in her chair, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. So that's it. I nodded. Her gaze dropped to the table, her expression unreadable. But I saw it, the slow realization that she had pushed me too far, that there was no coming back from this. I stood. Take care of yourself. And then I walked out. For the first time in years, I didn't have to wonder where I stood. I didn't have to question if I was being taken for granted or if I was wasting my energy trying to matter to her. I had my answer. And now, I had my freedom. She tried reaching out a few times over the next few weeks. Nothing dramatic, just short, half-hearted attempts to keep the door open. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you want to talk. I never answered. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She was reaching out because she missed what I did for her. The convenience, the financial security, the comfort of having someone to fall back on. But love? Respect? Those were never part of the equation for her. I heard from a mutual acquaintance that she had to downsize a couple of months after I left. She couldn't afford the rent on her own. The apartment that had once been ours, but had always really been hers, was gone. I won't lie, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing she had to face reality. Not because I wanted her to struggle, but because she had treated me like I was disposable. And now, she had to live with what it truly meant to be alone. As for me, I moved on. I found a smaller apartment. Nothing fancy, just a place that was mine. No shared space. No walking on eggshells. No being treated like an afterthought. It was quiet, peaceful. And every morning when I woke up, I didn't feel resentment or frustration or that dull, sinking weight that had become so normal in my marriage. I felt good. People talk about closure like it's some big, dramatic moment, some final conversation that ties everything up neatly. But sometimes, closure isn't about them. It's about realizing you don't need their apology. You don't need their validation. You just need to walk away. And that's exactly what I did.